So you want to blow fat clouds like CGMatter, but you don't know how to make smoke simulations, and you would rather use a procedural approach that lets you move and scale your clouds, change the amount of detail it has, and also lets you quickly generate new variations. This way we can render out all sorts of clouds, create a whole weather system, or so with Blender open anti-disestablishmentarianism to default cube, replace it with a better one, and head over to the shading workspace with the viewport set to rendered mode. And here we're going to be creating a volumetric material, which Eevee initially doesn't render nicely, so to fix this, just go to the render tab and bump up your sample count, bring down your tile size, and enable volumetric shadows with more samples. Now to actually make our procedural clouds, our game plan is to create a volumetric sphere inside our cube, resize our mesh so the volume is more cloud-shaped, change up the lighting for a better overall look, and finally adding some procedural noise to deform our volume. And before we start messing with nodes, just make sure to pick up an HDRI from HDRI Haven, and you should also... So starting off with our volumetric sphere, we can make this by replacing the principled BSDF with a gradient texture set to quadratic sphere, add in a mapping node to the vector input, and use this to resize and position our volume. Finally send this through a principled volume node using the density socket with the color set to white, and to make this visible again, just multiply our gradient texture by some large number. In other words, all we've done so far is created this node network to make our volumetric sphere, and to be honest, all this talking has made me pretty tired, so I'm handing it over to my girlfriend for the next few steps.
Thank you, CGMatter. So our next step is to resize our volume into something more cloud-shaped, and since we're using generated coordinates, all we have to do is resize the mesh, which will also deform the interior. Now for better lighting, we can just make a simple 2-point lighting setup using area lights, and for the environment, just head over to world, add an environment texture node to our background, and load in the HDRI you got from HDRI Haven. Finally, to disable this in the viewport, we can go to the render tab and under film, enable transparent. Back to you, CGMatter.
Now the last step is to deform our volume with some procedural noise, and to do this just add a noise texture set to 4D, use a vector math node to add this to the generated coordinates, and adjust the position and size until everything is inside our mesh. This way we can control the shape with our noise scale, the cloud detail with the noise detail, and generate new clouds using the W slider. We can also add a color ramp node to control our cloud fall off, and a CGMatter approved trick is to use an object info node to randomize our W values so duplicated clouds all look slightly different. And now that we know how to make procedural clouds, we need to render them in some way that doesn't take forever, and our sponsor for this video, Concierge Render, offers a GPU render farm that'll help keep our render times low. We're talking hundreds of dedicated GPUs rendering out your Blender 2.79, 2.8, or 2.81 projects in either Cycles or Eevee with prices as low as 35 cents per GPU per hour. For example, here are some benchmarks I ran using our procedural clouds with both Eevee and Cycles, and I wish I knew about the service when I was rendering my short film default cube. I had my laptop rendering for nearly a week straight, and because of this my time was spent something like this. And to use Concierge Render, all we have to do is pick the render settings we like in our Blender project, go to File, External Data, and automatically pack our files, and in the Concierge Render home screen just log into your account. Now we're going to go to File Manager, upload the Blender project we saved out, and once it's uploaded, go to Launch Render and choose the appropriate settings for your project. We can then go to Job Manager to view our progress, and when the render is complete, you'll see all the stats for this job along with the download link for the final render. And there you go, another photorealistic, beginner-friendly tutorial to put on your fridge. I've been CGMatter, you've been you, bye-bye.
So I want you to ask yourself, did I enjoy this tutorial? And if the answer is yes, and on top of that you want to donate and fund future videos and tutorials of mine, please do consider checking out my Patreon. It is the best way to ensure that I can keep making tutorials for free. So hope you enjoyed the video.